In this video, I'm going to be going over, in my experience, what I think to be the top 5 parrots for beginners. I'll be explaining the various reasons as to why I think that these birds are the best for you if you're looking to get started into owning a pet parrot. So number 5 on the list is Pionus. So this is Sora, my bronze-winged Pionus. They are just remarkable birds. So I have this really cool bronze wing right there. And you look at the face, and it's a very hawk-like face. You can just see the coloration. It's very unparrot-like. You know, normally people, they want to get a parrot because they're wanting like this very colorful bird and things like that. But actually, parrots extend to all kinds of shapes and colors. And Pionus are known for having more of that like dull, hawk-like kind of coloration. So Pionuses, I describe them as the loyal lapdog. They just love to just sit there and just spend time with you, be patient, keep an eye out for intruders almost, but just kind of like enjoy your presence and be there, relax, super chill. One of the most chill birds you can get. They're not exactly the most playful or cuddly bird, but if you kind of have this idea of like a parrot being like, like a pirate with a parrot on his shoulder all day, Pionus are kind of like that kind of a bird. Very low maintenance. You don't really have to play with them and keep up with their energy. They're overall very low energy, low maintenance birds in terms of their personality. Next up is their noise. So right off the bat, people don't realize that birds that talk a lot don't also just talk. They're just very noisy birds, and they won't shut up. And that's why a lot of people end up getting a parrot because it talks, end up regretting it because their whole house sounds like an absolute jungle all day long. So when it comes to getting your first bird, you should really look into more of a quiet bird. Pionus is very quiet. Can they talk? Yes. Sora here, he has a few phrases that he kind of mumbles. Not exactly the clearest talker.
Since he's a male, though, males are usually the louder kind of birds, so that's probably more into play of why a normal quiet bird, like he should be, is actually quite a bit of a chatterbox.
Yeah, and all parrots, regardless of how quiet they are, will always have their noisy moments. So Sora, he has a few phrases, he can talk, but overall, he's a very quiet bird, very quiet most of the day. You won't even know he's there, pretty much. And this is where I think that Pionus, perhaps one of the best like family-friendly birds, because they're just the right size where like if you have a small kid, they're not going to accidentally crush the bird or anything like that. But also, being a slightly larger bird, if they were to bite, it would probably hurt a little more. Perhaps the biggest drawback in why Pionus are on the bottom of the list is because of their price. They're not exactly the most affordable of the birds on this list, despite them perhaps being one of the best birds for beginners in every other category. You can generally find them starting around $1,000. Sora, a bronze-winged Pionus, are one of the more rare of the Pionus species. Of Pionus, the most rare are the Duskies and bronze-wings, and you will be paying a pretty hefty sum. So right here was $2,700. And I was on the waiting list for 3 years. So there's not many breeders for Pionus, but if you're looking for a more affordable Pionus, definitely white caps are the most popular and blue heads. Still really expensive compared to some of the other birds we're going to be covering on the list, but in every other area I consider them to perhaps be one of the best beginner birds you can buy. So next up on the list is a bird species called Poicephalus. My brother actually has a Poicephalus named Lupe, and he is a Myers parrot. Poicephalus are perhaps another one of the most underrated beginner birds, just like Pionus. Very similar in personality to Pionus, though they can be a little more cuddly and playful. I would say they're like a slightly more active Pionus. They have a really good appeal to beginners, probably a little more than Pionus because of this, and that's why I have it a little higher on the list. Most species have a gray head at the very least. Most of their colors, they still tend to be a little more on the drab side, like Pionus, more so on the grays, but they are known to have a little more color. The rarest of the Poicephalus is going to be the red belly parrots. They're really cool. They're pretty much just gray, but with a really cool orange reddish belly. Really chill birds, loyal lapdogs. I would say, at least in our experience, Poicephalus seem to be more likely to develop a one-person bond, meaning that they're going to prefer one person in your family over the rest of your family. That's not always the case, but I know Poicephalus tend to gravitate in that direction a little more than Pionus. But overall, they're very friendly birds and really great for beginners and families. My brother actually flight trained his parrot and also taught him to go on his back and play with the belly. And it's overall a really playful Myers parrot. They definitely can go in that direction. So they are like a Pionus, but I would say a little more cuddly and playful. And then when it comes to noisiness and loudness, they're just about equivalent to Pionus. They're just pretty quiet. They can talk, but just not much. I would say that they're pretty good for like apartment living as well. They're really quiet birds.
Yeah.
Poicephalus, they are on the smaller scale, so I still think they are a great size. I think they're probably one of the best sizes you can get. Just a little bit smaller so they will eat less and things like that. But they're still large enough to, like, you know, take good handling and things like that. When it comes to price, they are still a little on the high end compared to the other birds on this list. You're looking about $1,000. They are cheaper than Pionus because they are more common, around like $800 mark. So they're definitely up there in price in terms of finding the bird, but if you can afford one, they are great beginner birds. Overall, I would say they're very rewarding to beginners. Alright, so next up on the list is Cockatiels. Cockatiels are absolutely great beginner birds, and that's why they're higher up on the list. These are perhaps, I would say, the most common parrot you will find in the pet trade. Just about every store carries a cockatiel. Perhaps they're like the most recognizable parrot, I would say. Especially with their iconic red cheeks that are just so unique, and they're just so cute. They're famous because they have the little feather up on top. You can see her crest is down right now. They have the famous red cheeks, kind of like a Pikachu, which, you know, hint hint.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
Hint, hint.
We'll talk more about that later in this video. They have a very long tail that gives them a really unique look because it has like cool patterns to it. There's so many different mutations for cockatiels, so you have a lot more variety there. Cockatiels, I would equate them perhaps, I would kind of equate them as being a lot more cat-like in terms of like birds. So cockatiels are definitely more like an independent kind of bird, is kind of what I get at. So having a relationship with a cockatiel is perhaps very rewarding, because with cockatiels you kind of have to earn their relationship and earn their trust. Cockatiels are kind of more on the bottom of the food chain in the wild in Australia. And because of that, they're very skittish birds naturally. They're flight over fight. Any chance they get, they will try to get away, is kind of cockatiels. They can be a little difficult for a beginner who wants a immediate satisfaction of a parrot ownership. Cockatiels you definitely have to work with to get them to the point where you would really enjoy spending time with them. They're very independent birds. They don't like other birds other than cockatiels. When it comes, and it goes back to because they really don't like others other than cockatiels. You really have to earn their trust, and then you get that rewarding relationship from them. When afterwards that you develop that relationship, they'll do things like putting their head down for you to scratch them, give them scritches. They'll chirp and sing for you, chilling with you. And they're very playful, actually. Once they build that trust, they always do really cute things. They're really great beginner birds, and they are a great way to test and learn how to handle a parrot, because you do see that progression from when they're very skittish towards you to earning the trust. And that relationship becomes just so rewarding. When it comes to noisiness and loudness, they are not loud at all. Like, they're very small. They don't...
Perfect for apartments.
They're great for apartments. They do have noisy moments, but again, they're not very loud, and honestly, they're really cute when they're being noisy. They don't really talk though, so that's something to keep in mind if you're looking for a talking parrot. But they will mimic like whistles and chirps. So if you whistle to your bird, you can teach them songs. There's like a famous video on YouTube of like the birds singing the Totoro theme. Just so cute. They're just great birds in that regard. In terms of hardiness, they're definitely more fragile of a parrot. They are kind of the bottom of the food chain in the wild. They're very small, very skittish. Because of that, not the most durable bird. Unfortunately, like a kid handling this kind of a bird, they have to be really gentle with this kind of a bird. They're definitely on the smaller end. The tail kind of makes them look like they're a lot bigger, but they are really small, lightweight birds with really thin bones. So it's something to keep in mind. You have to be a lot more careful with a cockatiel compared to some other birds, like a Pionus or a Poicephalus. Now, when it comes to price, this is perhaps one of the best reasons, is they are really, really affordable birds. I actually would say they're perhaps the cheapest bird on this list. You can go to just about any pet store and they're very, very cheap. Like, you can see them sometimes like just 30 bucks or even less sometimes. But I don't recommend that. I'm a big advocate of going to good pet stores that actually allow customers to interact with the birds, and that way they get accustomed to getting handled by humans.
Getting to know your bird before you buy it is a big factor you should look for before buying a bird.
Exactly. They're obviously going to charge a lot more for a bird because they put a lot more work into it. But at the same time, they are still one of the cheapest birds you can buy. At a good store, they will be costing about just under $200, which is really affordable as far as a good tame parrot goes. They are definitely the easiest bird to get into. They definitely require more work, and that's probably one of the downs, is they will require work compared to some of the other parrots on this list, but they're also very rewarding. If you are hyperallergenic, cockatiels are definitely up there in terms of being a dusty bird, so that is something to keep in mind. Poicephalus also are a little bit dusty, but not as bad as a cockatiel, I would say. So if you are looking to get a parrot and you're looking for a rewarding and affordable solution, cockatiels are perhaps your best bet. So number 2 on this list is the Hahn's Macaw. Hahn's Macaws are perhaps one of the best bets for most beginners if they're willing to spend the money. Most people who get into wanting a parrot generally want a bird that talks, a bird that's super colorful, very playful but also cuddly, and like pretty much they want like a dog that flies and talks and looks really, really cool. That's why you get a lot of beginners who get perhaps one of the worst beginner birds you can possibly get, which are macaws.
Oh dear Lord.
Macaws are huge, really difficult to like get under control, so high energy, they eat a lot, very expensive.
They're the size of a 5-year-old child, and they will act like a 5-year-old child
for the next 80 years of your life. Macaws are not good beginner birds, but there is an exception, and that's mini macaws. A lot of people have never even heard of mini macaws. They're incredibly underrated. The smallest species of macaw in existence is the Hahn's macaw. They look like macaws. They're very green and they have a really cool red tints to them, and they overall just have that macaw look in like this really cool green coloration. And they are the most perfect macaw anyone can ask for. All the mini macaws are great, but Hahn's macaws are high up on this list because of a few reasons. First off, They are puppies. That's how I equate them to. They are puppies. They are playful. They just want to be with you all the time. They'll talk. They can get noisy, but they are overall like just little miniature puppies that fit in the palm of your hand. They are so cute. If you want that big macaw personality, Hahn's Macaw is the way to go. Absolutely. But there are some caveats. They are noisy birds.
Yes.
They are noisy, but they don't get that loud. Being smaller, they're not as loud as a macaw. They're kind of in this gray area for being an apartment bird. They aren't loud, but you may want to just double check with your apartment, for example, if they are a good bird for you or not. So now, them being a macaw, I would say they're definitely a lot more hardy compared to some other parrots. They're a lot more bulky of a bird, but it is still a very small parrot. Again, about just the right size, I would say. They're a little smaller than a Poicephalus. They're pretty good when it comes to hardiness, I would say. They have very strong beaks, them being a really aggressive hook bill, that kind of macaw beak. If your Hahn's Macaw is kind of a nippier bird, you definitely need to be more careful with the Hahn's Macaw around children. But overall, they're really great. So when it comes to price, mini macaws are not popular. That's why a lot of people have never heard of them. They generally lose out to the bigger brothers, the big macaws. Of the mini macaws, Hahn's Macaws are the most affordable. And you're probably looking to about the mid-grand, around 1,500 or below. Though some breeders, they charge even more. It's a pretty hard bird to find at a reasonable price. Mini macaws in general are really expensive, but I would say if you want a mini macaw, Hahn's Macaw is the most affordable option because they're small. And again, I think smaller size is a really great size for beginners because you're not going to lose a finger if you're, you know, if it's really nippy, and you're and the affordability of caring for a smaller bird is way more affordable than a larger parrot. The price is kind of a big deterrent, so that's why I give it the number 2 slot. In terms of reasons why you wouldn't want one is time commitment. Them being more of a playful big bird macaw personality, they need perhaps the most attention of any of the birds on the list. Like, if you're not going to devote 2 to 3 hours a day spending time with your bird, it is not the bird for you. I will just flat out say, not what you should be looking at.
Like a puppy, they need time and attention.
They need that time and attention. Don't even consider a Hahn's Macaw if you don't have the time commitment. Otherwise, they will turn into very nasty birds, and they will develop a lot of psychological issues like plucking and other different issues. So if you do have the money and you're looking for a beginner bird, Hahn's Macaw is absolutely great if you have the time commitment. If you don't, you probably want to look into one of the more affordable options, or the Poicephalus or Pionus. So, number 1 on this list is, drumroll please, the green-cheeked conure. Green-cheeked conures are perhaps the absolute best beginner bird for the vast majority of people. They are just great. They come in all kinds of different mutations, so you can get different looks. There's pineapple conures, fire belly conures. They're just kind of the stock green cheek conure look, like Utah here. And they are just so cute. I like that dark hawk-like head. It's like a little miniature hawk, but there's still some cool color with this red tail. So that's where conures get their name, is conure means long-tailed parrot. Very similar to parakeet. Actually, parakeet means the exact same thing, long-tailed parrot. Just conure is the term used to refer to the New World parrots. Really cool birds, and they get way more colorful if that's what you're looking for. They're just so cute. Just look at them. Oh, baby. Oh. They are equivalent to just the absolute most, like, cuddly cat you can possibly imagine. They just want to cuddle with you all day and fall asleep in your hands. I mean, look at her. She's closing her eyes right now. So if you're looking for a pocket kitten, this is the bird for you. Alright, we're done with this video. So when it comes to personality, they just cuddle all day long. It's all they do. It's what they love doing. They just want to be with you. Even if they're not in a cuddly mood, they just want to sit on your shoulder or on your lap, and they just want to stay there with you all day long. And that's a green cheek conure. They are perhaps the best personality for a beginner pet owner. But it's not without fault. They do have a very big bird personality. What I mean by that is they can be a bully to other birds. Utah here loves to pick on Sora, a bird that's literally 5 times her size. Yes, she bullies him. Very big bird personality. They don't realize that they're a small bird. They're a big bird.
They're like chihuahuas in that regard.
Yeah, they're like a terrier.
Shepherd.
They're like a little like Yorkie terrier in a way, in that regard. And that's where green cheek conures, if not taken care of, they can be a bit more of a nippy bird. Where if they're not happy with you, they'll let you know. They will nip your finger. So they can be nippy birds, and that is something to keep in mind with their personality. Utah here is not nippy, luckily, except the few times where she really just doesn't want something or whatever. But most of the time, like 99% of the time, she just wants attention, just wants to be cuddly. Very low maintenance, you don't have to play. As long as the bird is there with you, it's happy. That's all it wants. When it comes to noisiness and loudness, they are one of the quietest conures. Conures are known for being very noisy birds. Green cheeks are one of the few exceptions. They are just not noisy at all, which is a bit of a downer if you are looking for a bird that talks. There are green cheeks that talk, but it's really not common. It's pretty rare. When it comes to hardiness, and this is the only place where I think green cheeks lose points here, is their size. They are really small birds, about the size of a cockatiel. Actually, just a little smaller than a cockatiel if you look at that. Being small birds, you gotta be a little more careful. Now, it's great they're cuddly birds, they just fit in your hand and you just hold them all day long. But when they're not in your hands, you just gotta be really careful that like you don't have like a cage door, squish them or anything, like, because they're really small and fragile. And that fragility is perhaps the biggest downfall here.
And don't fall asleep while cuddling them.
Yeah, don't fall asleep. Don't sleep with your birds, okay? And especially small birds, because, yeah, if she got squished, like, that's it. She's kind of gone. Then when it comes to price, though, green cheek conures are very common birds. A lot of pet stores and at least every bird store will always have a green cheek conure.
They usually alternate between either having a cockatiel or a green cheek.
Yeah, like they're so common, that's why there's so many mutations with green cheeks. The most rare of the mutations, and I think the coolest one, if you can find one, is a blue mutation.
Oh, those ones are pretty.
The blue mutations are insane.
Oh, it's like a Caribbean blue.
Yeah. Which are absolutely cool, that from this wild type color, there's so many different mutations with green cheek conures. Because of that, the price can go up or down. You'll probably find them probably more around like the $300 mark, perhaps a bit more if you're getting a rare mutation, but overall, I consider that to be very affordable when it comes to a beginner bird. When it comes to faults, it's really just how small the bird is, them being fragile. And then if you're wanting a talking bird, but in terms of everything else, it hits the check mark for a really solid beginner bird. They're just very easy to train, they're super cuddly, they can be active, they just want to like cuddle, and they take scritches and petting and just like holding them in your little hand. They are just overall perhaps the best beginner bird you can get. And that is why green cheek conures are #1 on the list. If you are looking to get a parrot, you should look into a green cheek conure. So guys, that concludes my top 5 beginner parrots. What do you guys think? What kind of birds do you want to get? Go ahead and comment below what kind of parrots you're looking into. And if you have any questions about getting a parrot, go ahead and let me know, and we'll try our best to respond to them whenever we can. So, as I mentioned earlier, you may have noticed something. That's right, we got merch! Yes guys, we have merch. We've been working with a number of artists and come with these absolutely amazing designs. So here's Choco, and like I said, Cockatiels have the cute red cheeks. So what better than putting a cockatiel in a Pikachu hoodie? This one is Flock Wars. Just absolutely hilarious. I just love the level of detail here. You know, we got Sakura right here. We got Yoshi, who tries to be the tough guy. We got Yuta and Choco, and of course, Sora is the big bad baddie. And we also have some other designs. So guys, if you're interested in this awesome merch, go ahead, check out fivesaflock.com, link in the description below. We got shirts, we have some mugs,
Backpack.
we got a backpack even. Most of our audience is largely from TikTok right now, but we're trying to push YouTube. So your support would really help. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the like. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.